All right, here we go, episode 3. So welcome to the Black Renaissance Women Podcast, aka the BRW, where we use documentaries as a springboard to conversations about all things Black history, culture, and Black joy. So I'm really excited about today's episode. We are going to be discussing the documentary by ESPN called The Crossover, which is all about sports, hip hop, and how they coincide to create the culture. So I have with me today Ms. Lauren. All right. I felt like Lauren was the perfect person to have as a guest today because she is a longtime athlete, but she also is doing some wonderful things in the community. So let's start, Lauren, by just telling us a little bit about who you are and the sports that you've been involved in throughout your life.
Okay, so I'm Lauren Price. I, like B said, have been a lifelong athlete. I played AAU basketball starting at the age of 9. From there, I moved on to high school and I eventually earned a college scholarship to play basketball at Wagner College in New York. From there, I kind of played in a couple of pickup basketball leagues with some of my colleagues who I had grown up with, and they mentioned that there was a very competitive football community in the DC area. So I started playing maybe 2007 co-ed, and then someone mentioned to me about this women's league, and I was invited to come out, and I started playing there in about 2009, and I've played football from 2009 until January, and then I became a coach and started my own program.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Now you did leave out some. Just say it. We know you were champion. Well, so talk about it.
I'm humble. No, but I'm a 5-time national champion. I've been a part of 5 teams from the DC area that have gone to Florida and won national flag championships in the women's division, the pro division, which is the highest division. So I've won 4 of those championships with Lady Elite, with 3 coming back to back to back. Yes. And I won my first one in 2010 with Most Wanted.
Nice. Yeah. Thank you for being here, and thank you for sharing.
Thank you for having me.
Look, your story and your accolades.
Yes, thank you.
Shout out to Lady Elite. That is the connection that Lauren and I have. We didn't play at the same time, but we played on the same team. So I wanted to make sure I represent and wear my Lady Elite shirt today. Shout out to Lady Elite. So let's get into it. So this documentary, and I think we share that too, right? We both enjoy documentaries.
Yes.
So it was a while ago, don't judge me, maybe over a month ago when I hit you up and was like, hey, let's
But we made it happen.
Yes. Let's do this podcast episode. Then we started talking about documentaries. I was like, perfect. She's a perfect guest. So I watched this particular documentary just because it was about sports, right? Obviously I'm interested in Black history and culture. Right. And so I saw that it was all about how sports and hip hop come together and really create this aspect of Black culture, with a lot of our athletes becoming pillars in certain social movements, right? Whether the civil rights movement, and then which turned into the Black Power and
now Black Lives Matter,
everything. So our athletes are all intertwined in there, and they really become the face of the culture and community, right? And not that they speak for all of us, but become a representation of the collective. And so this documentary starts off with pictures of Muhammad Ali, right? Mike Tyson. And there was a quote, I wrote it down. It said, I forget who said it in the beginning. Okay. But they said, sports became the path that transformed athletes to kings, right? And then they showed pictures of Muhammad Ali, Tyson, Serena. Right. And then they said, hip hop became the road, right? So they came together. And also that the culture was at an apex when those two went hand in hand, with the development of hip hop, right? Because you had these groups coming out that were really putting out some political messaging.
Yeah, Public Enemy. Yeah,
exactly. Public Enemy. And then, of course, later on, a lot of other artists and groups that were not necessarily digestible to the mainstream, but were exactly. But we're putting out messages that we appreciated.
Right, correct.
The things that we're thinking and talking about in our communities and in our homes, they were saying it on their mics. Right. So Nicole Hannah-Jones was also in this documentary, right? The creator of the 1619 Project. Right. And so we know that she is a scholar and professor and culture commentator. And she said in this documentary that Black life in America is defined by struggle. But then she also said that Black life is also defined by magnified ambition to overcome that struggle. And so when I think about like sports and athletes, that's what I think about.
Right.
So yeah, you talked about Public Enemy coming along, you talked about NWA, all of those things. Right. And so like, what are your thoughts on, athletes and artists, right, really becoming pillars and sometimes spokespersons, right, whether they want to or not, for the culture?
So I think whether they realize it or not, whether we realize it or not as consumers, we now call them influencers, right? Social media, everyone's an influencer. But athletes were the original influencers. Without the social media aspect, they were who kids and even adults look to in terms of the waves, what's popular, what's trending, what direction we're going in. They often set the tone for the shoes that we wore. Even the clothes, starter jackets, were it, and so I think that athletes, they just were the first influencers. So traditionally, whatever they, endorsed or whatever they lend their voice to or supported, the community kind of went behind it.
Yeah, I agree. Even, if we're taking it back again, right? Like the documentary mentioned the Rumble in the Jungle.
Listen, that was an event. It was not only a fight, but it was a curated event. From the concerts, James Brown.
Yes.
Listen, exactly. I've seen the documentary many times, and that's where that Ali Boombaye, that's where that comes from. I mean, even when I was in school, we would jokingly, say that chant or whatever, but that's where it came from when the kids just literally ran with him in the streets. Yeah. And so it was so much more than a fight. I know it's so cliche now because we say everything is for the culture, but that literally was for the culture. Muhammad Ali took Black America to Africa, and put it on full display. They had the wherewithal back then to record it, which was unheard of. Now we have cameras everywhere. Everything's recorded at the push of a button. We already have the camera in our phone, in our pocket. It's nothing for us to record, but to have just the mindset that this is something that needs to go beyond us who are here. And it was just amazing. I love that documentary.
Yeah. And it was a whole, like you said, it was a whole show.
It was a movement.
Right.
Yeah.
It was like the elevation. It was putting spotlight on the culture and really elevating it, putting that world eye on it. So all of those things. And then we talked about this before we started recording, but in 1968 when you had Tommy Smith and John Carlos and then, the famous glove fist.
Yes.
Yeah. And I
think that was the Mexico games.
Yep. And so I love how you put that as like our athletes really were our first influencers.
They were.
Right. We have people all online, like you said, now doing anything and everything.
Right.
But then this is who our people look to, right? Our athletes.
Right.
And I also...
But they're also the bridge. I mean, but they're also the bridge, right? Not even just influencers, but spokesmen for conversations that we're having in the Black church, that we're having in the Black barbershop, in spaces that are ours. And we're identifying the problems that we have within our community, but everybody in the room looks like us. So, they say we can't make change unless we actually have a seat at the table.
Right.
And so not just influencers, but also spokesmen, to be able to kind of bridge between the Black community and those sponsors or those corporations or those businesses that they're a part of. And then John Smith and Tommy Carlos's situation, or Tommy Smith and John Carlos, in their situation, I feel like they were able to amplify the problems that were being discussed within our community and put them on Front Street for white America.
Right.
It's crazy because, like I did mention that I played college basketball, and believe it or not, we're talking about I graduated from high school in 2002, and I had teammates who had never had a Black teammate.
Really?
In 2002.
Girl.
So, I know we're talking about back then in 1968, but
even still in
our time, there are pockets and communities, within this country where Black spaces don't exist. So whether, obviously, I'm not a professional athlete or anything like that, but I automatically walk in the shoes of a representative because I become a representative because there's no one else.
Right.
They've never seen anyone else.
Right.
Right.
That's a really good point.
Yeah.
And so you've made this point about being a bridge that stuck out to me when you said being a bridge, because that was something that the documentary mentioned as well. It was like our athletes, you know, were the people that brought crowds together.
Right.
So, you know, we know that this country is built on racism. So it's everywhere. It's all up and through the fabric of everything that we experience. But in those moments, Black folks and white folks are cheering for the athlete on the track. Black folks and white folks are cheering for that star basketball player on the court. And so the documentary talked about like athletes being those people, not just influencers, like you said, but influencers and I guess dot connectors, right? That really brought everybody together in celebration of sports. And like, I guess to me, it's like the idea of sports also being a form of like escapism for people. Like, we enjoy sports for entertainment. You know, a lot of people do. You know, Black folks, white folks, whoever. And so I think maybe that's a part of it too. You know, it's like we enjoy sports. We enjoy watching it. It's entertaining. And so for some of those brief moments, it's like you're rooting for your team and you're not necessarily caught up in all the race battles.
Well, and especially hot topic, obviously, because it's coming up, the Olympics, right? It's easy for a second for people to forget that you're Black because you have on red, white, and blue. And so, you know, the bigger enemy is them in the moment.
At that time.
At that time. So it's easy. You're not rooting for them personally. You're rooting for the red, white, and blue. You're rooting for the country. Exactly.
Yeah.
And the same thing in the sense, if we want to look at NBA or NFL, I'm not rooting for you personally. You're here today, could be traded tomorrow. And I'm still going to root for that uniform.
Team. Right.
Right. I'm going to root for that uniform. So I think sports is less personal, right? I just want to win the game. Like, I want my team to win. I don't care that you're Black. Like you say, I don't care that you're Black, you're white. I'm rooting for the uniform.
Yeah, I agree with that. And, you know, just the activism of it all. Period. Like you can't talk about sports and activism without talking about like Muhammad Ali refusing to be drafted. Right. And he made this very public and very strong statement against the fact that he's like, I don't have no beef with them people. Like, y'all not about to drag me in my life over there to fight for a cause or a problem that I don't have. In the place where I live, I'm not even treated like a person. Right. You know, and so that, and you know, we already talked about the famous raised fist and all of those things. And even if we fast forward to, you know, some later generations in our time, we had a lot of athletes that we grew up with who were in the middle, you know, of some public activism too, you know? And so that's the thing. So that's why I appreciated this documentary. I do want to make this connection and I guess transition a conversation to women's sports specifically, right? Because we're sitting here, we're women, we have been athletes. Like, I grew up playing football. Right. Like, football was my first love. Right. You know, like, yes, I did other sports, track, swimming, or whatever. My family was so into football. Right. We're going to have a turkey bowl game every Thanksgiving. Right. That's what my family does. We're going to have the pickup games in the side yard at the cookout. Right. Shout out to my cousins, Sean, who was the permanent quarterback, you know, just the older cousin with the swag. Right. But, football was my first love, but back then, like, you were a girl. Right. You know? And so, like, what does that mean? I mean, I'm grateful, like, my family, like, we can pick the girls too. You know, everybody can play. Right. But in other spaces outside of that, you know, there's a whole, like, nah, girls can't play or football's not for girls because it's too tough or whatever, you know, all of that stuff. And so when I think about that, and I think about girls and women in all of the other sports too, and just, you know, what that means. And so when we think about even what we see going on today, right, like with the W, and this whole conversation that has been going on just about like the viewership and the support that the WNBA doesn't get versus what the NBA gets and all of those things. And so I guess my next question to you is like, do you think that activism is inherent when it comes to being a girl, woman, or female athlete?
It has to be. It is absolutely inherent. I don't, no matter in 2024, as a girl, a woman in sports, you are a trailblazer, whether you want to be or not. Mm-hmm. Because the WNBA has been around for, I don't know, since 20 some odd years or almost 20 years, if not.
They played the first games in 97.
Okay, so we're quickly approaching 20 years. But like Serena Williams said last night on the ESPY Awards, you would think that this is the inaugural season of the WNBA.
Close to 30.
Oh, 30. I'm sorry. Did I miss it? Yeah, okay, I'm sorry. Mm-hmm. But like Serena said on the ESPYs last night, you would think that this is the first season of the WNBA. The media coverage, the support from fans has never, this is unprecedented. Mm-hmm. And these young women are activists, whether they want to be or not. Mm-hmm. You know, when they go into those post-game press conferences, a lot of times they're asked questions that don't pertain to their stat sheet. Mm-hmm. You know, so
or that a male athlete would never be asked.
Would never be asked. You know, even just the perception, the way that the storyline has been created. Mm-hmm. You know, we have Angel Reese and we have Caitlin Clark, and I feel like, so I don't know what their relationship is in real life. They may be buddies, they may be good friends, but that's not the spin that the media is putting on it. You know, we have good versus evil. We have black versus white. Mm-hmm. We have, you know, the damsel in distress versus black woman with an attitude. You know, so I just think that, you know, activism is just woven into, is a part of their makeup.
Yeah.
And that's not even for sports, but women in any arena, really.
Yeah.
You know, it's 2024. We're still dealing with pay disparity in pretty much across the board in careers. I think Dawn Stanley just mentioned something about this. I think this is the 50th anniversary of USA basketball in terms of, you know, like the Olympic Committee and all of that. Mm-hmm. She was somewhere, I think, speaking on that. It may have been the ESPYs as well, but she actually got up there and said, how can I, as a woman, not talk about pay disparity in sports when I do the same thing and better than my male counterparts, but I get paid less?
And the record shows.
Let the record reflect.
The data is there.
Let the record reflect.
Because we already know.
We know.
The caliber of an athlete and coach.
Absolutely.
You know, that Dawn Stanley has been. So that's a really good point. And I'm also glad that she, you know, said that.
Right.
But then again, it goes back to, though, black women are always doing the work.
Always.
We always do the work. Like, we push the work forward in all arenas of the culture. And then just like thinking about or discussing like the intersectionality of being a woman, being an athlete, and being black, you know, you got to deal with all that comes with that too. And so when you know, mentioning just like this whole thing with Angel Reese and Caitlin Clark and pitting them against each other or villainizing one,
right,
and not the other, that's something that I think about. Right. When I'm looking at like an Angel Reese and how she's being depicted or the calls that she's getting on the court and things like that.
Or the no calls.
Right. And those are the things that are focused on or highlighted, but not her being the double queen.
Exactly. I think she's at 14 or 15 in a row at this point.
Right.
And I mean, but it's a tale as old as time. As American as apple pie.
Unfortunately.
Right? You know, you have the great white hope. You have Caitlin Clark, who is here to be the savior of women's basketball, according to them. But I just feel like Angel is doing a great job. I feel like she's doing a phenomenal job when you listen to her press conferences. A consummate professional to me. And she also speaks her mind. She tells her truth. She speaks truth to power every time. Activism.
Hello.
So, yes.
Yeah.
So I think she's doing a great job handling everything that's coming her way.
And I also appreciate too, like so two things. I love how she made the statement of like, people come to see me too.
Right.
Like, no shade, but she's not the only person that folks are coming to see, or she's not the only person who, you know, helped bring light to women's basketball, you know, when they were in their college season. But so I appreciate her saying that, like speaking up, because
Absolutely.
she's right.
Right, she is.
But then also seeing her interact with the OGs, right?
Yeah.
Like, Angel Reese is clear who the greats are in the WNBA right now.
Right.
And I feel like I see a certain respect there.
Absolutely.
Right. And so I think that's the thing too. Like, we appreciate, we acknowledge, and we learn from those who come before us.
Right. And again, I think that's innate in us as Black women. Mm-hmm. We know that there is someone who has come before us to blaze a trail, to create a path and a lane for us. And so I think that's just something, even outside of sports, we understand the importance of paying homage to those who've allowed us to sit in our seats.
Yeah.
So,
to our village, to our elders.
Absolutely.
To our foremothers and fathers.
Right.
So, totally. So with that being said, like, you know, we both believe that activism is inherent in just being, you know, a girl, woman, female athlete. But there's also this piece of like always sometimes having to fight for your place in sports, but also having to defend yourself. Yes. Like, I think it's it's common. Like, it's something that we know, you know, of like women who play sports, and this not so much anymore, but being like accused of being gay because you play sports, or you have the automatic label of a tomboy, or you're masculine, or whatever. So I'm glad that we are kind of moving away from that. But yeah, you know, so just being accused, like having to defend your right because you're a girl or woman that likes sports. And so I'm sure you've seen that.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think that the idea of Black women being more than one thing is hard for people to imagine. Mm-hmm. So I can't go on the court. I can't play my game and be passionate about what I'm doing. And that passion may come out as me, you know, flexing after a touchdown, or Angel Reese always, you know, makes the too small gesture after she might body somebody on the basket. And to them, that comes off as aggression. You know, it's going to always come off as aggression or anger to
and not
someone
just a game
who does not understand passion, right? Mm-hmm. And so when you have that type of passion in a game, people can only compare it to the men because that's the only place they've seen it, right? So they compare it to male athletes, and then it's like, okay, because she acts like or gestures like a man on the court, she must live a life like a man outside of the arena of sports.
And it's like, what?
And it's crazy. So I'm so glad that this year the WNBA is doing a better job of, you know, something that's big with the NBA is like pregame tunnel walks, you know, capturing the guys when they walk in the tunnel with their outfits on. And the girlies are walking. Like, but
they strutting.
But it's okay whether they're straight, gay, bi, non-binary, whatever it is. It doesn't matter. It has nothing to do with them being a great basketball player on the court.
Exactly.
Nothing to do with it. So, you know, I think that's a conversation that, like, when you look in the comments or social media, and it's so funny because Black men are like, oh, she a hooper. Like, oh, she can ball. But you always have, you know, that middle-aged white man who never played anything, is a keyboard warrior. And it's like, spam in the comments, you know, but Black men are like, oh, that's my baby. Like, you know, and I would pick her over this one or that one, you know.
And we did used to hoop with our guys or play football with them. Like, we've done that.
Right.
Yeah. So I think that may have been a thing in our community too. Like, you know?
Yeah, I think it's foreign to me because I didn't grow up that way. I grew up with a supportive dad, you know, who fostered the love of sports for myself and my sister. Always encouraged us, made us go outside and play with the boys, made us, look, you play whoever lines up against you. And it wasn't just him, my uncles, it was my coaches, my cousins, and they were proud. They were proud of the athlete that I was. It's like a foreign concept to me to have men who don't support. And even as an adult, you know, if you've been to a DC Eli game, it's more people at those women's games than there are at the men's game. Right.
Yes. If you have never been to a DC League game, you need to get there. DC is the Mecca of flag football, women's flag football specifically. If you go, and you should, you are going to see super competitive games.
Absolutely.
You're going to see really good athletes. And I mean, you're just going to have a good time, honestly. So, yes. If you're in this area, if you're in the DMV, shameless plug, get on and go watch some women's contact flag football.
Right.
Little commercial.
Commercial break.
With all that being said, let's talk a little bit about you and what you have recently done to elevate girls in sports and flag football specifically.
Okay. So I decided in January that after we won our last national championship, I decided I just really didn't have anything left to prove, and it was time for me to move on from flag football in terms of being a player. Flag football is my happy place. I've realized that as an adult, it's my happy place. I've never lived my life without being an athlete. Mm-hmm. And so I noticed that in probably some of the toughest times of my life, it was because I wasn't involved in sports some way, somehow. So with me knowing that January was quickly approaching, this was going to be the end for me, I decided that I wanted to start a little girls football team. My daughter is 8. For her entire life, she's been on the sidelines of my games, and it's something she has interest in, but the lane just did not exist for her. So in February, I started DMV Prime Elite. We're an 8 and under girls team here in the DMV area. We're a travel team, as there aren't many other teams locally. It's not really a lot of opportunities for us to play locally. So we're a travel team. We have tournaments coming up in Ohio, Pennsylvania, New York, and we do have something here in Upper Marlboro on the 20th of July.
Okay, awesome. And so, you know, we talked a lot about like what it means to be a girl, woman, a female athlete. So what are some of the things that you want to bring to or develop or instill in your girls?
Yeah. So, my girls already know that they're trailblazers. I let them know every practice, win, lose, or draw, what they're doing is great, not just for this club that we're playing for, but their communities as a whole. They're inspiring other young ladies. I have gotten so many inquiries from other young ladies who would like to join us, but we simply just don't have the space right now. And we're working on expanding because we don't want to turn anyone away. We know that there are not other opportunities. So my young ladies, they know that they're trailblazers, and that's something that I hope that they carry with them, not just on the field with DMV Prime, but in their schools, in their communities, in their churches, in their homes. I hope that they take great pride in what they're doing. I let them know they should be proud. I constantly remind them that they're leaders. Just sports in general have opened so many doors for me that would not have necessarily been open. And it is my sincere hope and prayer that I'm able to keep this group together from the time that they are 7, 8 years old until they go off into high school and college. That is a thing now. High schools do have girls flag football. It is a sanctioned sport, and colleges have women's flag football, and starting in 2028, the LA Games flag football will be a part of the Olympics.
Yay!
And so I want them to understand, listen, club today, community tomorrow, country after that.
Period.
So I just really want them to have fun. I want them to learn. I want them to grow. I want them to enjoy their teammates. Really it's so many life lessons that come from sports. And I can see it in them already. I can see. Last night we had practice, and I told them it was one of the best practices that we've had. Not because of what they did skill-wise, but every time one of their teammates did something well, caught the ball, got a sack, pulled the flag, there was another teammate there to give them a high five.
I love it. Celebrating each other.
And
uplifting each other.
Uplift each other. So, you know, those are the things that I hope they take from this. You know, sisterhood, pride, just understanding that it's bigger than them, even at 7, 8, 9 years old.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. Love that. Okay, so tell the people how we can support you and your girls and the team.
So first, you can follow us at DMV Prime Elite on Instagram. We're growing a following there. We post pictures, our schedules, that type of thing. At this time, because we are a new club, a lot of things have actually come from our personal budget. We've gotten some tremendous donations over the last couple of weeks. We are working on a sponsor, literally that could come through any day now. That will really kind of change the trajectory of the club. So hopefully that comes through for us. So we're always looking for monetary donations. We're a nonprofit. We have our LC. We have our together. Okay. So any donations are tax deductible. But those are the main two ways that we can be supported at this time. Money is a big thing. It costs money to travel. It costs money to enter these tournaments.
We needed to make the team go.
Yes, and these tournaments are like $400 and $500 a pop. And so for us to even enter, we're paying $500. Then we still have to travel. We like to provide water, Gatorade, snacks, and certain just, vitals for the kids, right? Yeah. And so I just don't want money to be the reason these young ladies don't have experiences. Mm-hmm. I don't want to let that stop us. So we have been keeping our foot on the gas pedal in terms of fundraising. Any opportunities that come our way, any sponsorships, we're taking advantage of it.
Love it. Yeah. Great. So we will definitely link your information in the descriptions of these videos so that people can support. Y'all make sure you go follow.
Absolutely.
I'll be sure to tag the team in these posts as well.
And you can support us by coming out. I don't mean to cut you off, but you can support us by coming out. We have one and one only local tournament, and that is on July 20th at Liberty Sports Park. I'm not sure of the exact schedule yet. That comes out Monday. But
they'll see it when they follow you.
Yes,
right?
Absolutely, because you're going to follow. But it's the only game, the only tournament that we play here. So we're hoping that all of our family and friends will come out and support us.
And bring somebody. Let's cheer them on, cheer the girls
support these young ladies.
Listen, y'all, I've seen some clips. These girls are out here balling.
They're balling. They baby ballers. I'm so proud of them.
They are balling.
I'm so proud of them. And a lot of times, to be honest, we're going in spaces that don't look like us. We're the only team that is made up like us. And so, I've already had to talk with them about, listen, being on your P's and Q's, working 2 times harder. Listen, I want you to celebrate, right? But we can't humiliate anybody. Right. And just being mindful of that, because the same ref you see in Ohio, you're going to see in Pennsylvania. And whether we want to admit it or not, sometimes people don't let things go.
Yeah.
And so we just have to make sure that we always put ourselves in the best position to win. Right. And that comes with being prepared, being humble, So
those life lessons.
Those are those life lessons. Listen, start early.
Yes. So yes, y'all, be sure to follow and support the girls team,
DMV Prime Elite.
Yes, and Lauren, thank you so much.
Thank you for having me. Thank you for having me.
Documentaries, sports, and activism, and women in sports. I love it. So thank you so much.
Thanks for having me.
All right.
Bye.